Um,
Good morning, Creative Life. Welcome to our Sunday, May 19th, 2024. Let me say, first of all, if you're watching us this is your very first visit to Creative Life virtually, we don't usually look like this on a Sunday. I look like this on a Sunday morning, but nothing else about this looks like this on a Sunday morning. We have a succession of different speakers on stage. We have musicians, and we have a congregation in the room. The reason I'm doing this from my desk, and it's actually Saturday night when I'm recording this, is because the power is out or is shortly to be out at the center due to fallen light poles and transformers, and it's just a mess in the area. And CenterPoint is going to come around and they're going to cut the power to, I think, 72 different homes and businesses in the area so they can replace these light poles. Consequently, we didn't want you down there tomorrow morning sitting in the dark and the heat and with no sound system and with no capacity for broadcast. So we're doing this here. And I'm on Zoom and it's going to Facebook. And huge thanks to our Sunday team, especially Reverend Lisa, who has spent virtually all day preparing for this, setting this up and figuring out how to do this. I'm Jesse Jennings, a senior minister, and I'm going to take you through a truncated form of our Sunday service. I'm going to start with the inner healing experience, have a few announcements, give a talk, close with a treatment, sing 4 or 5 songs. No, not really. And this will be probably run about 45 minutes or less, what we're going to do here today. I invite you, if you're in the area, you're in our thoughts. You may have been sitting in the dark in the heat yourself. Several of our people that we know of for sure are. If you're not in the area, please turn your thoughts our way to all of Southeast Texas because we're recovering from a massive windstorm that we had. And that being said, I invite you just to relax into this sweet morning that you're having wherever you may be, at home, on the road. Just relax and know that there is one life, one presence, one power, no matter how things look, when they look that way. This power is alive and active and at work. And we're going to now have a process called a responsive reading called the inner healing experience that you hear Danielle Mercadale lead us in every Sunday morning. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one and all is well. I invite you now to close your eyes and relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand and let my words act as your own for your own inner acceptance and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I become ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words, I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the kingdom of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, now I say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing this idea is already acted upon and brought to pass. And seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words, I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now I call to mind the face of someone who has touched my life in powerful, wonderful ways. A friend, family member, a teacher, or mentor of mine, someone who's not physically present in my space today. I turn toward that face I see in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. I now open my eyes to the world around me and turn joyfully to the person next to me. They're in the room with me, they're in the house with me, sharing my gratitude and confidence with them by saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life. And that, my friends, is the inner healing experience. And it's wonderful to hear that when a room full of people respond to those prompts. Okay, a couple of announcements going forward. We absolutely expect to have the power back on by next Sunday. I just got a text from Sean, who is our wonderful facilities manager, and he tells me that it's yeah, the center point has been in the neighborhood, but they haven't touched anything yet. So we're knowing that they're going to get to it. And, we use our center right now, not nearly as much, not nearly as often as we did prior to the pandemic. And we're working on doing something about that. But a particular concern are the people in the homes in that area and the struggles that they're having dealing with this. So again, let's keep them in prayer, and we'll do whatever of a practical nature can be done for them as well. We have book studies. We have all kinds of events going on. We've got a self-mastery class that just started on Tuesday nights with Reverend Katie Roxburgati. You can still get in this week if you'd like to. Information on this is on our website, and it's in the weekly emails that you get, and it's on our Facebook page. And for everything else, just, tune in. If you're not subscribed to our emails, we'd love to have you. Just go to our website, and there's a box you can click and put in your email address, and you'll get a weekly activity update from us. And we're looking forward to some fun adventures together this summer, like we always have in our summertime. So that being said, let me get on with the talk. And we've been looking this month at the works of Joseph Campbell and toward looking at, for the purpose of looking at metaphor, mystery, symbol, illusion, um, and that for a purpose that we're not entirely clear what it is. By which I mean, there are books that jump out of your bookshelf at you. There are subjects that all of a sudden kind of intrude on your thought, and you realize they're leading you somewhere and you don't know where. There is a purpose for all of this. There's a journey that we're on, and there's steps that we're going to take together in that journey, but we don't yet know what they are. And actually, that's largely the substance of Campbell's work on world mythology, was to explain his way of thinking that life is not a process of finding meaning as much as it is simply the experience of being alive. And in the experience of being alive, you learn to trust and you learn to have things happen that you hadn't expected. They come around every corner, and every day is a new day. And through all of that, you discover more of yourself. And that really is the point of spiritual work. It's certainly the point of modern metaphysics, is that the self should know the self. The self should know the self as completely as possible. And we talked last week about the conscious and subconscious aspects of mind. And I shared with you that the subconscious, which is often characterized as the feminine aspect of us, is the part of us that's abstract and nonlinear and imaginative. And it's a part of us that scares the dickens out of us sometimes. We have had to, as a culture, sort of embed it with properties of fear and strangeness, weirdness, uh, kind of a feral energy to it, to keep ourselves, we felt, safe. And what we've succeeded in doing instead is we've kept ourselves walled up. We've kept ourselves boxed in. Um, I shared with you Campbell's viewpoint that there is no plan. There is no overarching plan to individual life or societal life. And I shared with you, I believe also that Ernest Holmes said pretty much the same thing at around pretty much the same time in his own way, where he said God is not a planning intelligence in his way of thinking, but is a patterning intelligence. And this patterning intelligence causes us to cross paths with things that correspond to the deep level choices that we make. Now, more on that. The deep level choices that we make, we may not always be aware of. We're aware of the more surface level choices that we make, and the plans that we do form for ourselves, the path we select, and we know that we've selected. But there's a deep level choice going on that pre-exists really our arrival on this earth, or at least comes in very early. And that deep level choice is reflected in the affinities that we have, how we're drawn to certain things. We're drawn to certain practices. Something, a piece of art hanging on a wall makes us weep when it doesn't seem to have that effect on others around us, or a piece of music or something, or we're drawn. We're drawn to nature. We're drawn to animals, you know. But what is this reflecting? Is it just something we've decided to up and do, or is it deeper? Well, we tend to think it's deeper. We tend to think that it's a mythologized sort of a reality for us, that it's a symbolic series of events tied together by symbol and illusion and allegory. That's it's trying to get a point across to us in a certain way more effectively than if it came in any other way, because this is the channel that we're really listening to. So Campbell talks about myth, and he's known for that. That's really his stock in trade. And mythology, the mythologies of the world he studied. And what is a myth? What is a story of why? A story of why? A story of how things got the way they are, or could have gotten the way they are, or could have gotten differently than they are, and why, or for what reason. For what reason things might be the way they are. If you ask things why they are the way they are, it's why is such an open-ended question. It can kind of fall apart in the asking. But if you ask for what reason or for what set of reasons things become the way they are, you tend to get more useful information. And so a myth is a story of how things could be and what could be behind them, what could be the deep level choices that are motivating these things to occur. A myth is not, as we have been taught, most of us, a falsehood. A myth is not a lie. And you'll hear people saying, we use the word both ways, really, but you hear people, that's a myth, you know. And all it means is, in that context, is it's unproven. There's not a fact set to back it up. But myth is the realm of imagination, and it's well worth looking at. It's well worth exploring. The idea of a myth being a story that we tell ourselves. And we can get as proficient at telling stories as we are at listening. Get as proficient at listening as we were at the telling. So a myth is a tale. A myth is a tale about how things come to be. And for example, you remember in childhood all the stories that began once upon a time. Once upon a time, there was a this, there was a person, there was a being who was in some degree of distress, and they did something, and a power came in the form of maybe another being, or an animal spirit, or the deity, and rearranged things. They were heading down a dark road toward an uncertain outcome, and something turned on the lights for them, and they began to see. You remember all those stories that you heard, the fables that you heard? all of these had a moral to them. And we'd even hear it said, well, the moral of the story is, if you had trouble following the story, they'd come in with the, well, now what this means, children, is that if you work hard, good things come to you. If you're not lazy, or if you're duly cautious, or if you pay attention, or if you do good things for others, good will come back to you. There were all of these moral fables that were about improving our character, understanding our character and improving our character. But the stories were set up in such a way as they didn't come right out and say that. They didn't tell you should be a better person. You should stop doing this and start doing that. Instead, they worked up a story about beings. And again, a lot of times they used animals, the grasshopper and the ant, this kind of thing. And they'd spin the stories these ways. And the reason for that was several fold. One was, if somebody comes right out and tells you what you should do and what you should not do, you're going to tend to rebel. You're going to tend to kind of bow up and take it as a lecture, and get your feelings a little hurt, and be a little angry about it, and it's not going to stick. Also, it's going to keep you in a very kind of a linear position, thought wise. You're not going to stretch your mind awfully much if all you get out of life are lists of instructions. But if you have to hear a tale and then figure out what it means, it's going to make a deeper impact on you, and it's going to be good for your mind. It's going to be good for your cognitive process to figure this out. One of the great spiritual psychologists, if not the greatest who ever lived, was Jesus the Christ. And he knew this because he taught in parables. The downside always to teaching in parables or teaching through myth is that people don't pursue the moral of the story. And they say, oh, he's talking about this. They're talking about a literal this, and not the metaphorical dimension that exists. But it's a risk you run, but you need to run if you want to really encourage your listeners to grow to their full potential. And so Jesus taught he would say, the kingdom of heaven, for example, is like this. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Did he mean it literally? Of course not. That makes no sense, you know. But the faith of a mustard seed begins to make sense. Why? Because a mustard seed knows how to grow into a mustard plant. It has the intelligence within it to do that. It knows what it has to do to become fully what it is. His larger point, obviously, was that we have within us the power to become fully who we are if we'll just be true to it, be committed to it, and practice it with regularity. So the mythological structure of life is telling us that the fullness of life is right here for us to enjoy. And there's every journey that we take is a journey into inner space. Every excursion that we go on, every quest. And I suspect that where we're going with this, with Campbell's work, visiting us here in May of this year, I think we're all going to go on a quest together of some kind. And maybe this is the first step in that quest, is doing things a little differently on Sundays, and having a chance to take care of each other, and look after the center and look after this work that we're doing. I don't know. And then there are all the personal quests that each one of us are on individually. I don't know. But I think this information, it's you don't you things don't cross your field of vision unless they're beckoning you onward somewhere. So this is where I think we're going together. There are a few things along the way that we're having to unlearn. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the whole plan idea. It's like a lot of us, I think, have kind of gotten accustomed to thinking that we're here on this earth as if we've been sent on an errand. And it's like if you were a little kid, especially in a pedestrian environment, where you walked a lot, they might send you to the store with a list, and they tell you, don't talk to anybody you don't know. Don't interact with any strangers. Go to the store, get what I told you to get, nothing else, and come straight home. That's not bad advice. If you're a parent and you're sending your child off to the store. I'm not even sure parents do that anymore on foot, but let's just say, because they did with me in my generation. So that's not bad advice, and it makes sense for the child. But what if you're 20, 30, 50, 80 years old and you still think you have to go to the store, you have to go on this errand and not encounter any strangers, not interact with anybody you don't know, not interact with anybody different from you, and only do the assigned task and run straight home? You're going to have a very small life. You're going to have kind of a tunnel experience of life. There's going to be routine, there's going to be predictability, and inevitably there's going to be boredom. So we're breaking out of that when we start thinking about patterns and a patterning intelligence rather than a planning intelligence. The patterning intelligence is saying, on some level, we are ready. We are ready for an experience that we've never had. We're ready for a quality of experience that we've never had, even if the form of the experience is similar to prior experience. We're ready to savor each moment. We're ready to live in the now. We're ready to be free and spontaneous. We're ready to be astonished. As Emerson put it, out of our propriety. We're ready to be stunned, ready to be awestruck. At the next corner we turn. We're ready for this. Why are we ready for this? How do we know that we're ready for this? The very fact that the information presented itself to us that such a thing was possible, because we have conceived of it. Because we have conceived of it, the thing becomes possible to us. Once we have conceived of it, it will not leave us alone. We need that call to adventure. We need that quest on which to go. And what is the end result of the thing? It's always self-awareness. There are other gifts along the way involving many, many other people, many, many other fields of consciousness with which we interact. All of that turning back into the recognition of more fully of who we are and of how powerful we are and how connected we are to the source of all creation, because we're perceiving what's going on in the world and we're making a subjective determination about it. And in so doing, we're shaping what's going on in the world through that subjective impression. We're making ourselves part of the story. We're involving ourselves in it. We're delighting in this. I'm reminded of a story that I heard years ago from the Native American tradition. This is a myth. This is a place you find a lot of myths, is in creation myths, how everything got started, how everything came to be. And especially in indigenous cultures where storytelling is an art and it's revered. These stories get passed down from generation to generation, and they're not to be taken literally at all, but they are inspiring, and they are a gift to all who hear them. So I imagine a child asking their grandparent, let's say, because the parents are often too busy, so you skip a generation, you go to the grandparents, and you ask a question about how did certain things come to be, and what you get is a myth. You get a fantastic story back that's meant to do all of the things that myth can do. So the story that I heard, and these are countless, of course, was how the stars got their placement in the night sky in these forms that call to the imagination to pull them together into constellations. But how did all of this happen in the first place? And the answer that's given in a particular version of this story is that grandfather spirit Wakantanka, who was the the creator spirit, the sky father, uh, but grandfather, wise older one, had a bag full of stars, had worked out a plan to place each one very carefully, and it would signify a certain thing, and its placement next to the others would signify certain things, and all together they'd form a kind of a code, kind of form a story. And so he started placing these stars just so, and he got very sleepy, it being night. He laid down with his bag of stars next to him, fell asleep. Wolf came out. Wolf coexisted with grandfather in at the beginning of time. Wolf came out and saw the bag, thought it was food, picked up the bag, stuck his snout into it, shook the bag from side to side looking for food. All the stars flew out and went everywhere across the sky. And there you have it. And there they exist to this day. Now, what a wonderful story. And I got to tell you, ever since I heard this story, and it's been some time now, whenever I'm out on a starry night, I think about it. It won't leave me alone. And I think not about, again, the literality of it. This is Wolf's work in the sky. But I think about the power of the human imagination to look up, as our ancestors have since the very beginning of sentient life on this world, to look up at the night sky full of stars and look for a story and look for a story. Maybe even look for some kind of guidance, look for some kind of personal meaning out of all of it. That's the thing. And if this is possible with a field of stars in the night sky, it's possible with anything. So a couple of weeks ago, I made the suggestion that for a homework assignment, we look at everything around us in our lives, one piece at a time, and ask ourselves, what else could this be? What else could this represent? And I have a suggestion for us today as well in looking for meaning, is what might I be preparing for? What might I be preparing for? What is all of this leading toward? What is the experience of being alive for me? What am I being trained to do by the power that made me, that is resident within me? Where is this going? And to just live in the question, not necessarily seize on to the first thing that comes to mind, but be aware of it. Be aware of it. To ask ourselves, do I feel ready? Do I feel worthy? Do I feel equipped for the journey into where my deep level choice is taking me? And if not, what else has to happen? What are some of the intermediate steps? Because, as Campbell says, we have passed from the eternal into the realm of time. We've passed through eternity, really, um, in a moment to get here now, to collapse eternity down into the present moment, into the richness of the now and here. And what we make of that, what we do with that, the stories of the beginning, and how we were created into time, and how we now live in two worlds at once, the world of time and space and the world beyond time and space that circumscribes it, will be our topic next week. So what I want to encourage you to do, again, in the week to come, is ask yourself, where is this leading me? What am I preparing for? Am I ready? And if not, what intermediate steps shall I take? How shall I follow? this inner guidance as best I can. Let's know together now there is one life, one power, one presence, just one. Just one. One is all there needs to be. One of this dimension for sure. That is infinite, therefore contains everything within it, contains me within it. I am one with it. I use its mind every time I think. I enjoy and benefit from its attributes in every action I undertake. So I speak this word now from within that one about those aspects of that one that are the godlings who surround me in this community and wherever people are struggling or suffering or doing without, wherever people are sitting in darkness, be it the absence of material light or the apparent absence of spiritual light. And I know that this one is mighty to heal, and it's doing what needs to be done in ways that only it can do. And it's restoring homes and businesses, and it's restoring trees that have toppled, and it's restoring power lines. And it's restoring hope and trust and faith in nature and in the winds that blow and the rains that come. And there's a balancing taking place across the world. There's a healing of the climate of this earth, free of blame or shame or finger pointing of any kind. We are suddenly guided to do the best, the highest, the healthiest things for this earth, our mother, and for each other, for all people, all civilizations, and all societies on this planet. And while this is taking place within the heart of each of us, there is an unfolding of a destiny that we have chosen and are choosing as we go. There's an unfolding of good. There's a growing of compassion and self-acceptance, self-awareness, all manner of good things for this knowing and its manifestation in form everywhere we turn. I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, into the night filled with stars. I let it be, and so it is. Well, again, I want to thank you for joining us today, and I hope you'll tune in again next week when we will be back on stage with music and singing and all, singing and dancing and all kinds of excitement in our physical campus. Because as wonderful as this is to get together in this way, and it was certainly easy for me. I'm sitting here at my desk, my home office. There's nothing like getting together in person, if you possibly can. So hope you'll join us. 5326 Spring Stubner Road in Spring, Texas, suburb of Houston, and stay strong and be well. And I would lead you in singing the peace song, but no, nobody wants that. So I'll see you next Sunday, if not before. All right, take good care.